been marred by dysfunction. I think that it is important as we think about these families, we might be able to find solace and solution for our own families. Here we find, again, some tension between mother, father, and children. We see that the father is poised to do one thing, the mother supports another idea, and the children are kind of caught in the trap of being reared by parents who are against one another. And so we find in this particular text where some information is misused. And I raised today this whole idea of how not to misuse information. You know, Brother Jennings, I believe that this is very important for us today because it is very pragmatic to what we do in our lives. We live in a world whereby information is always at our fingertips. Now, when we first started this experiment of internet, there was information out there about things that were very general, but not necessarily local and specific. But as time has gone on with this whole idea, Sister Valerie Saunders, of social media, our information has gone beyond that which is general to that which is very specific. There might have been a time, Sister Michaela Saunders, that you would type in something such as a cardinal or a hippopotamus or an elephant, and you could find information about the animal kingdom. But if you typed in the name of your best friend, their name would not come up. But now we live in an era whereby you type in your best friend's name, and more than likely you will get several different sites that their names are on, their pictures are there, family pictures are there. If you know what you're doing, you might even find out if they have a traffic ticket. Information is out there, and there's a lot of information out there about us, a lot of information about each other. I started using the internet very early on, and there are some things out there that I've been careful with. Interestingly enough, one of the staff members had to go pick up something this week for me, and they got there and could not figure out which name to use. And I had to chuckle because when I'm on the internet, I'm very careful with my name. Information can be misused, and you must be careful how you place your information, your pictures, but then not only your pictures. I would say to parents, even as we think about this, be careful with your children's pictures, because later they will have to live with the fact that you may have made a wrong decision by putting all of their pictures and their information on the internet. And so we find in this particular text a woman who is listening. In verse 5, it says that Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And Rebekah spake to Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father. So number one, in order not to misuse information, you need to respect privacy. You need to respect privacy. She was busy eavesdropping. She was busy listening on somebody else's conversation. Sister Jasmine Brooks, we need to respect each other's privacy. The things that people want to keep private and the things that people tell you in secret, we ought to try to keep those things private. Now, not only should we respect privacy, we should respect privacy in our own lives. In other words, there are some things that the world need not know about you. There are some places where you ought not take a selfie. There are some places where you ought not check in. And there are some things that you ought not place on the internet. Misuse of information is when you disrespect not only my privacy, but your own privacy. Not only that, if you look at verse 6, as I read already, you'll realize that not only was she eavesdropping, she then took the information and told somebody else. So not only should you respect privacy, you ought not carry stuff. Number one, you ought to respect privacy. Number two, don't carry stuff. And see, you realize that the old adage usually is true, and that is that a dog that'll bring a bone carries a bone. You got to be careful telling people your business. If you don't respect your privacy, you do realize that when people hear things, they tend to tell what they heard. You got to be careful in terms of people carrying things, and we must be responsible enough to realize that if somebody has invested a secret in us, that we ought to hold on to it until the day that we die. Because if they invest that to you and they trust you to do that, you ought not carry people's business around. You ought not be a gossiper. Oh, I wish somebody in this church could say amen. I know that this affects all of us because at some point in time our mouth has opened like a refrigerator with spoiled food. Because we tend to tell things because we want to be other folks' friends, and we want to be selected as friend of the year because I gave you the juiciest gospel. But we must be careful not to misuse information by respecting privacy and not carrying stuff. But then look at verses 8 through 10. It says, "Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loved. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death." You need to leave others out. You need to leave others out of your mess. You need to leave others out of your mess. Sometimes we carry around information and we misuse information because we're busy trying to build a posse. Oh, you're busy trying to build a gang, a team, a group of people that are on your side, and so you misuse information and you say things that you should not say because you're busy bringing everybody else in your stuff. One of the common things that happens in the family structure is this whole idea of what we call triangulation. All of our preachers have gone through family counseling and so on and so forth, and I think Dr. George Willis has probably said more about triangulation than you cared to hear. But the fact is, oftentimes what happens is we never want the conflict to be between two. We want it to be between somebody else that we pull into it so that they'll be on our side. Sometimes we even prefer for them to speak for us. So oftentimes we're bringing other people into our mess. And you know, at least when we think about King David, he was able to say, "God, it is against thee and thee alone that I sin." But far too often we not just sin against God, but we sin with each other because we throw sin parties and festivals. We want to invite other people in, and before you know it, everybody is upset because we've got 10 more people who are involved. If you bother with the pastor, hey, come on, stand on your own 2 feet and say what you got to say. But there are churches, not this church. I do want our visitors to know that I'm not throwing shade in this church. But I've been to other churches where this happens. It doesn't happen in this church. But there are churches where people whisper to other people because they're too cowardice to say it themselves. And so they whisper to other people. And then before you know it, there's 2 or 3 caught up in it. Don't put other people in your mess. In our families, don't put other people in your mess. I used to pastor a gentleman who could talk out of this side and that side at the same time. I pastored a gentleman who could talk to somebody in front of him and turn around and talk about the one in front of him behind him. And he could do that with such ease. You would stand there and you'd almost be amazed, Sister Wesley, at how well he could do it. We need to leave other people out of our situations. Look at verse 11. Verse 11 says, "And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man." You need to respect privacy. Don't carry stuff. Leave others out of it. But then let restrictions warn you. Let restrictions warn you. Far too often what we do is push override. The Lord sends some barricades and some detour signs that says, you know what, you need to stop, you need to wait a minute, you need to turn around and go the other way. And far too often we disregard when God is telling us to stop. When you get to running your mouth and you're telling everything and everybody's business, and you hear the Spirit of God speaking to you and telling you to shut up, you need to shut up and run as fast as you can. You need to realize when the Lord gives you a pause button that you really need to button your mouth and stop talking. You need to realize that God, He gives us ways out, and we need to take the way out. Her son was telling her right then and there that there's a problem. Rather than to stop, she continued to scheme across the problem. So what happens because she disrespected, because she disregarded the warnings? Look at verse 12. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. How not to misuse information is don't curse people. Now I didn't say don't curse at people, I said don't curse people. In other words, what we ought to be is we ought to be a blessing and not a curse. We ought to bring good into the lives of others and not bad things. We ought to be asking God to bless them and not to curse them. Let us be honest. Oftentimes when we're talking about other people's business, Sister Shannon, oftentimes when we're sharing information that we shouldn't be sharing, the real reason behind it, the end of the story, Brother Danny, usually is that we have some negative intentions. Usually we're saying what we're saying because we're talking about them in order to glorify ourselves. Usually when we're saying something about somebody or sharing some private information that we should not share, is because there is something malicious in the mix. And oftentimes, if we really examined ourselves, our speech comes from a dark and dirty heart. Oftentimes, when we're talking about people and telling people's business, it is because we do not like them in our subconscious or our conscious. Oftentimes, it is because they are not like us, and it is because I want to say something to throw shade on them to make me look better. And so often we are not blessing, we are cursing. We are not giving life to them, we're bringing death to them in our tongue. There is life and death in the tongue, and everybody's business should not be coming out of your mouth when they've trusted you to hold on to their secrets. So we don't misuse information. We don't know things about people and hold it over their heads. We don't know things about people and share it in ways that will bring them down and not build them up. And so don't curse them. But then look at verses 15 through 16. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. She dressed her son up to look like the other son so that the father would give to him the blessing. And so I tell you how not to misuse information. You know, you need to respect privacy. Don't carry stuff. Leave others out. Let restrictions warn you. Don't curse, but then reject Halloween. See, because far too often what we're doing is we're dressing things up. My mother and my very good friend and church member, our trustee chair, Brother Ray Saunders, and my mother grew up in the same community. And they tell a story about a lady that was in their community, an older woman. And they said that anytime that woman would find them doing something that they shouldn't be doing, she would go to their parents and tell it, but she wouldn't tell it like she was telling it. She would tell it like it was a funny story. You wouldn't believe what I saw your child doing yesterday. Oh, they're just so cute, playing out there in the mud and playing like it. Oh, they're just so cute. I saw your child, they were just so cute, they taking penny candy out of the store. I said, oh, that was so funny. You know. And so there's some people who have the nerve to even try to dress things up and change things and transform things to make it look like I came in the name of good. And so they tend to dress things up. She dressed her son up based on this information that she had. Playing Halloween, I call it. Because far too often, we like to not only tell stuff, we like to tell it on the slide. We like to tell it behind people's back. Halloween, dressed up. We like to tell it in a whisper. We don't like to tell it out loud. Sometimes, Sister Jackie Turner, not only do we tell it in a whisper, we can't even say it to the person's face. That's why we like to tell it through the telephone. But let me tell you, just a word of caution, at least be smart enough to tell it through the telephone and not dumb enough to type it through the telephone. Because I tell you, every Snapchat has a screenshot. And so while you think you're telling things behind somebody's back, somebody is showing what you wrote to them. Because a dog carries and brings the bone. And so you got to be careful how you do your dirtiness. And so let me show you this last verse. Look at 17. And she gave the savory meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. How not to misuse information, respect privacy, don't carry stuff, leave others out, let restriction warn you, don't curse, reject Halloween, but then don't prepare deceit. Don't prepare deceit. You see, there's one thing to trip. There's one thing to stumble. There's one thing when we accidentally do things. But it's a whole nother ball game with God when you sit up and plan out things. When you are premeditated in your action. When you have time to stop, you need to stop. Rather than to sit up and figure out how to scheme on somebody. How to get over on somebody. Anytime you misuse information by preparing deceit and trickery and lies, you have gone against the very grain of what God stands for. For Jesus has said that we ought to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and love our neighbor as ourselves. You know that the skeletons that you've got in your closet that still might have some meat on them, you don't want anybody to get the key to your closet, so why would you hand out the key to somebody else? As a matter of fact, as lovers of the faith and lovers of God and those who ought love one another, we ought protect our brothers and sisters. If you should happen to pass by my closet and see the door open, you should be kind enough to close the door for me. Vice versa, we ought to care enough about each other as brothers and sisters of the faith to close the door and to protect one another, to pray for each other, to say, my brother, my sister, I know there's a problem, but let's pray about it in secret. I don't need to know your problem. You don't have to tell me your problem, because I know one who can fix the problem no matter how big or how broad. I don't need your secret. I don't need the juiciness. I don't need the gossip. All I need to know is that my brother or my sister has a problem, and I'll be willing to pray for God to help you. And if for some reason I do know the situation, then I need to put it on the inside and close it up and allow the Lord to deal with it rather than putting it out to the public. Whatever the situation might be, don't ever misuse information. God has blessed you to be wise. God has blessed you to be a part of the family, and so we ought to act like it. We don't have to wait till the family reunion on next week. We can have a family reunion every single Sunday, every single day that we meet our brothers and sisters. We ought to embrace each other with love and never ever put anybody on Front Street, because I tell you, whatever is on your back street might be on your front street tomorrow. Be careful throwing everybody else's stuff out of the closet, because your closet door might come open tomorrow. Be careful exposing folk, because you might be exposed tomorrow. And so we ought to love God and love each other. Amen. Watch your mouth. Come on.